Oh, well, buongiorno. Would you care to join me for a drink?
That's not really my style.
You know you are not making this very easy for me.
Is there any reason on earth why I should?
I can see this is going to be a difficult negotiation.
I cannot imagine what you think we're negotiating for.
I thought it was understood.
Oh, really? Euro trash.
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Layer Kick. A Coen brothers stand up with Timothy Chalamet. A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel. Alvin and the Chipmunks deserve another squeakquel. There's so many new ways to revisit sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update. But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
When I find I can't remember what comes after A and before C, my mother always whispers, "Letter B." This is the opening line to the 1979 song Letter B, as performed on Sesame Street by a Muppet group called The Beatles, spelled like the root vegetable. Northern Songs, the publishing company who owned the rights to the Beatles, spelled like the musical measurement of time, song Let It Be, attempted to sue Sesame Street's parent company Children's Television Workshop due to the educational parody's similarity to the original. Let It Be's predominant writer, Sir Paul McCartney, allegedly has gone on record that he likes the parody, though he has not added it to his live performance set list. However, McCartney has performed Let It Be a number of times since parting ways with the Beatles, spelled like the musical measurement of time. Notably, he brought down the house at Wembley Stadium on June 13, 1985, at a little concert called Live Aid. Performing the song with pals Pete Townsend, Bob Geldof, David Bowie, and Alison Moyet, viewers from all over the world could watch performances in London along with its counterpart in Philadelphia at the now demolished JFK Stadium. At Philadelphia's Live Aid parallel, the star power matched England's with performances from Run DMC, the Beach Boys, Neil Young, Led Zeppelin, and a famous performance from Phil Collins, who performed at both events thanks to the speedy efforts of the Concorde jet that got him from London to Philadelphia in the perfect amount of time. Introducing Phil Collins was the Philly counterpart's host, Jack Nicholson, along with multi-hyphenate entertainer Bette Midler. Beginning her career on stage, Midler worked her way to stardom as a Grammy-winning recording artist, having released 14 studio albums as a solo artist. Midler began her film career in 1979, starring in The Rose, for which she was nominated for an Academy Award and BAFTA, and won the Golden Globe. 7 years later, she would appear in the black comedy Ruthless People, directed by a comedy team familiarly known as Zaz, or Zucker Abrams Zucker, but this team would also splinter off and direct films independently of one another. Jerry Zucker would famously direct Ghost in 1990, David Zucker would direct the first two Naked Gun films, and Jim Abrams would helm a twin sister mishap City Mouse Country Mouse comedy, teaming up again with Bette Midler and comedy virtuoso Lily Tomlin. Greetings, Starfighters, this is Ruined Childhoods, and on this episode we celebrate 1988's Big Business, questioning whether there's a new future for this comedy classic, or should we just let it be? Dan, have you ever wondered if you were given to the wrong family after you were born?
Oddly enough, no, I haven't. No.
No suspicions of a hospital
No
mix-up.
suspicion.
You think that as we are brothers, our parents, the combination of the two matches you in such a way that it left no question?
Yeah, no doubt whatsoever. I am there. I carry the DNA.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I sound disappointed about that.
No, I didn't think that you were going to say yes.
Yeah, no. So, but we did, I remember when we were younger though, I feel like we used to tell our middle brother, Scott, that we found him in the salad bar at Pizza Hut. If I remember correctly, which also would make sense.
Honestly, I think that anybody, even our own parents, would actually wonder if that was valid, considering what we know about him now. And for those of you who are new to the podcast, our brother Scott is a pizza professional and known figure in the pizza world. And so to have been discovered in the salad bar at a Pizza Hut pizza parlor would come as no surprise. Man, I miss those Pizza Hut, buffets.
Classic pizza, the salad bar, the ambiance, just that perfect balance between class and chintz, and the celebration of going with your Book It stickers and getting your pan pizza, getting your tie-in like Back to the Future 2 drinking glasses or whatever.
I remember also a Teen Wolf 2 collaboration.
Oh, there was a Teen Wolf 2?
I think like a mask, like a paper mask or something like that.
Oh, you know what? That does ring a bell. A very faintly ringing bell long ago in the past. But yeah, that sounds...
Yeah. I wonder if any restaurants had a tie-in with Big Business. I suspect not.
I don't know what you would do. Just like switch up the meals and then just be like, ha ha.
Yeah, just like, oh, you got that person's meal and you got that person's meal.
Oh, that's
Gotcha.
the Tomlin, that's the Midler. Or just like they would have commercials with Lily Tomlin and Bette Midler, but I don't think that happened.
Yeah. Do you remember seeing Big Business when it came out?
I did not see it in the theater. I remember I didn't see it in the theater, but saw it on VHS. Presumably not long after it came out, because this would have been certainly appealing to me at the time as a 11-year-old, and I enjoyed comedy and slapstick comedy. And at that point, I'm trying to remember what I had already seen with Bette Midler in it, but or Lily Tomlin, come to think of it, because I don't think I had seen 9 to 5 yet. Nor I had definitely not seen Nashville yet. So, and of course, Lily Tomlin's been another movie. Maybe like the Incredible Shrinking Woman, I think, was like what that, and I feel like the Ernestine sketches, the telephone operator sketches. So I don't really. I remember this movie coming out. I remember.
Oh, okay.
Like, I remember, I feel like for the longest time, and I don't know why, I don't think there was a reason, but we had in our basement like a leftover like page from the newspaper in 1988, from like the summer of 88, that had like all the movie ads on it. And
I miss
it was like Big Top,
those
Pee-wee, right, Caddyshack 2, and you'd look under and see where it's playing.
Yeah.
And I remember Big Business being on there. Big Business, like 1988 was, I mean, aside from being a big summer for comedies with the word big in the title, I mean,
yeah.
Well, big, and then Big came out like a week before this one. Now, I mean,
yeah, that's true.
I wasn't confused about them, but I think there certainly must have been a lot of confusion at the box office. And
I think I read somewhere, it might have been like IMDb trivia or Wikipedia, but allegedly when people were going to the theaters, the theater workers would have to ask them to specify if they said like, something big, they'd be like, big or Big Business? Because I'm sure there were some
we
mix-ups.
going Tomlin Midler or we going Hanks?
Yeah. So I don't know. Also, we were quite the Zaz family. I don't know if it had really like solidified quite 1988.
No, though that was the year The Naked Gun came out. But I don't know that I don't think it registered that Big Business was directed by the Jim Abrams.
Right.
I wasn't tracking it at that point. Few years later, I certainly would have been. Like a few years later was when I was just tracking down everything else and like watching, I was about to say Ruthless People, but, the other film Jim Abrams had directed on his own, not Mafia.
Well, Ruthless People was
all three of them. Right. Yeah. So, but that was like, after Naked Gun and Airplane I had known, for quite some time, and just through like HBO.
Yeah.
But Big Business, yeah, it didn't register to me as a Zaz movie initially. It just looked like, oh, okay, well, this is a cute, funny, like, and it's clever. It's, like a slapstick, an old fashioned slapstick comedy.
Yeah, it's a farce. A pretty classic type of story. There's so many of these little, separated at birth movies, or something like The Parent Trap, which is a variation on it.
Or, I mean, you have in also 1988 Twins.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. With Ruthless People's Danny DeVito.
It's just it's a web. Everything is connected.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I watched Ruthless People the other day, to prepare for this, just seeing another, Jim Abrams related Bette Midler movie. And first of all, that movie is so much more fun than I assumed it would be. I think that I had seen it when I was young, but I really don't remember. I would be kind of surprised if I did, because there is nudity and there is some, salacious stuff going on.
Yeah. You definitely get it more when you're older.
Oh, totally. But I do remember seeing the VHS case at the video store. It's like Judge Reinhold with like the duck mask on. But that movie, it's so much fun. Bette Midler is having a blast, obviously doing it. Judge Reinhold is so funny. Danny DeVito is like classic Danny DeVito in it.
Yep.
And it's just it's silly. It's ridiculous.
You got to. Is Bill Pullman in that?
Bill Pullman is so funny.
Bill Pullman.
He's like a bleach blonde burnout surfer guy.
He is so funny in that. I mean, of course, it makes sense that he's in Spaceballs. Not even a year later.
Well, I mean, first of all, his Ruthless People performance is so different from anything else I've seen him in. I mean, Spaceballs, even though it's a comedy, he still plays a relatively serious seeming person.
But he has those moments in that movie of that, like, you see that flaky surfer dude come out.
Yeah, he's doing a character in Ruthless People, like big time character time.
He's fantastic. Ruthless People is such, and it's part of that Bette Midler, like this is part of that, like the Bette Midler Touchstone Pictures collaboration that like you lump Beaches in there with it. But you've got her in, and I think it starts with Down and Out in Beverly Hills in '86, where she's with Dreyfuss and Nick Nolte. And then you've got you've got Ruthless People and Outrageous Fortune she's paired up with Shelley Long. It's all these great like Bette Midler pairings. We pair her up with Shelley Long. We pair her up with Barbara Hershey for Beaches. It's like, who doesn't want to see the Midler Hershey combination?
Everyone's asking for it. I think that for me, I was a little less attuned to Bette Midler's career. I mean, we've covered First Wives Club on the show, but I think that in my view, growing up, she belonged to our parents' generation, and in a more theatrical way, like stage theater kind of a way, and performance and her musical career, like that's what I really associated her with. And so seeing her in roles like this in Big Business and in Ruthless People, it's like, oh, I get it. She's for everybody. It's just like, you have to understand who she is. And unfortunately, there's so much like in a lot of her movies, fat shaming and size issues, which is just like, she is pretty fit. And I would say it's unfortunate that was the narrative.
I would say I feel like Big Business does a little better.
It does.
Big Business does a little better, and I will add to that because whereas I think we placed Bette Midler with our parents' generation because she's approximately the same age and is a Jewish woman, much like many of the women in our family and, you know, our mother's friends. It was kind of like, although our house was, and I feel like I need people to weigh in on this here. Email us, ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. Was your home if you are of a similar generation and demographic as us, or whatever, even not, was your home a Midler home or a Streisand home? Because
also, you know what, I'm gonna put a poll on Spotify and maybe on Instagram. I'm just going to say Midler or Streisand. That
was because I feel like our house was definitely a Streisand house, though I feel like my heart, like this is where I wanted to be switched with another family, because I was like, man, I want to live in a Midler house. I want to know what it's like. I don't want to hear I don't want to hear the Broadway album and, like, you know, Barbra Streisand coming together, or bit by bit putting it together again. And though the moment when he pops in that disc in Defending Your Life, when Albert Brooks pops that disc in, like, I felt that.
I mean, despite her being funny girl, she always seemed more like she took herself seriously, whereas Bette Midler has fun with herself.
The divine Miss M.
I know. So good. And I think that I saw that this movie, Big Business, was originally intended for, or they were considering, Streisand and Goldie Hawn.
I read the same.
Yeah. That would have been kind of interesting. But we should probably do a synopsis before we get too much further. What do you think?
Please do a synopsis. Yes.
Okay.
There's some things I want to get to.
Okay. A strange series of events leads to a mix-up of identical twins at a small West Virginia hospital, leaving one daughter of a wealthy businessman in the country and sending one daughter of a furniture maker to the city. This strange series of events is also why the businessman now owns the West Virginia Furniture Company. 40 years later, the country twins and the city twins are at a crossroads as the big company, Moramax, is looking to offload the deadweight furniture company to an Italian investor, leaving the entire village of Jupiter Hollow, West Virginia, out of a job. The country twins, Rose and Sadie, decide to travel to the shareholders' meeting in New York to defend their town. Rose is apprehensive of visiting the city as it simply doesn't feel natural to her country sensibilities. But Rose can't wait to take the bite. But Sadie can't wait to take a bite out of the Big Apple. The city twins, also named Rose and Sadie, are aware that representatives from Jupiter Hollow are coming to the city, so they send a couple of their employees to find them first and talk them out of it. City Sadie is a true New York business-minded blowhard, but City Rose is less dazzled by the bright lights and wants to fight for the little people. After a series of mishaps and mistaken identity, specifically from all four girls' romantic suitors, the two sets of twins meet and chaos ensues. It's kind of a hard one to, explain.
It is. The plot is a bit, I don't want to say contrived, but interesting thing about the plot. And then we definitely need to talk about the cast outside of Bette Midler. But so not this past June, but the June before, my wife was in London on a business trip, and I took the opportunity to go and join her just for a long weekend in London. And one of my must-dos as also a language arts teacher, I felt like, all right, I need to go see a show at the Globe, at Shakespeare's Globe, which is not the original Globe, of course. It was rebuilt by actor Sam Wanamaker, and in the 90s. So we went to see, it was, all right, what's Comedy of Errors? Great. I'm like, that's good. I want to see something light. And we're watching the movie, and it's important to also know that Big Business is one of my wife's favorite comedies.
Love that.
And we've watched it together before, and we're sitting there watching Comedy of Errors, and I'm watching the plot unfold, and I turned to her and I go, it's Big Business. This is where they got the story for Big Business from. And I was like, Of course, because that's Shakespeare's plays are all about the, the separated siblings, the mismatched twins, the kind of bumbling and fumbling, and then the people who wind up as these fish out of water, and then somehow through fate wind up drawn back together.
Yeah.
It's the reason why all these people who I assume live in New York City are also staying at a hotel in New York City.
That was one thing that was a little perplexing.
It's like you kind of have to have that one location to facilitate everything.
Yeah.
And, but it's also kind of knowing that like, all right, well, that's the gag, and that's like something like that needs to happen where they all come together.
Yeah.
In a place. So it was fun because I think this is such a fun movie. I enjoy it so much. I enjoy it a little bit more every time I see it, just because it's
fun.
It's just fun, and it's fun. And Lily Tomlin and Bette Midler are so well cast, and they're a good pair. They really play those characters, all four of them. Mm-hmm. So genuinely and with so much wonderful energy, and it makes it such a joy to watch. Now the supporting cast,
sure,
is fantastic. Let's start with Fred Ward. Fred Ward,
oh my God! Well, he plays a character very similar to his Sweet Home Alabama character.
Yeah,
the kind of like, I don't know, speaks ill of the Yanks. It's he's a Southern boy through and through. But every time I see his like comedy chops come out, I'm just like, that's right. Fred Ward is so funny. He's versatile.
Right. Well, yeah, because I mean, how many other comedies did he do?
Very few, but he's so good in this.
Right. He's so good at this, and he's just so wholesome, and like he's the mini golf. He's on the ESPN, which I felt like looking back, I was like, I feel like that joke was ahead of its time. Like that's the same joke they were pulling in Dodgeball.
The Ocho.
Ocho. Yeah. Gary Cole. Fantastic.
Gary Cole, Jason Bateman. So good.
Yep. But in this, so they hit that joke here in 1988 with ESPN covering the mini golf tournament.
They do it beautifully too, because they don't like do too much with it. They don't wear you out. They don't hit you over the head with it. It's a one scene thing, and then it's done.
And I thought about it in the context of this movie coming out as cable TV is still a relatively new thing, especially in some areas of the country, and how you have these 24/7 stations that just need content.
Right.
So I guess the joke evolves to where by the 2004, you have so many ESPN channels to handle all of the content. So right. I guess it's a joke in two parts, like 16 years apart.
Totally. Yeah.
Told by totally different people.
It's a lot of fun, and Big Business handles it really smooth. But yeah, Fred Ward, what a delight. He's so, every time he's on screen, you're just like, great. I'm in it.
Yep. So how about Edward Herrmann?
Edward Herrmann, and who is his counterpart?
Let me.
So Edward Herrmann and this other actor, who I think Dan is going to tell us his name soon, they play employees of City, Rose, and Sadie's from Moramax, who are a gay couple. And gotta say, I felt like it was handled very well considering 1988.
Yes.
Because they don't like, they're not over the top in the way that they're acting. There's no flamboyance to it. It's a very like, light suggestion. And then it's just like, oh, okay, right. They're together. Like you assume that they're just business partners, I guess, at the beginning. And then you kind of realize, they are romantically involved. Got it.
Right. Yeah. Or like their collie, you just see them as, but there's all the hints there. And right. Like, I think they do but I didn't catch that when I first saw this movie.
No, but then the scene when Fred Ward is staying in their hotel room.
It's fantastic.
The way that all comes about, of course, is wacky. There's another mistaken identity situation where they think that Fred Ward's character is one of the representatives from the furniture company because he's a man. Of course, it's going to be a man. So, yeah. And of course, it's just like some dumb mini golf champion from the South, from West Virginia.
Yeah, no, all the mistaken identities, and was the character's name Chuck?
I really don't remember.
I don't remember either.
He was very good.
Yeah.
Both of them were excellent. Very well cast, and they played it perfectly. And no notes on that one.
No. I mean, yeah, surprisingly for a broad comedy from the 80s.
Yeah.
Like they did again, like good job, Jim Abrams. And
I also kind of wonder if Bette Midler was like, we have to be thoughtful because like, these are my people, like I know my demographic and I understand when a joke is going in a direction that is not the right direction. And so I do wonder if she had a hand in kind of massaging the way that they were going to be portrayed. But I don't know, maybe it was just Jim Abrams directing them appropriately.
Well, I mean, she definitely, but also you look at the history of how gay people are depicted in Abrams Zucker movies, which I don't necessarily know that gay people are depicted in Abrams Zucker movies.
I'm trying to think of some.
Well, Johnny in Airplane, not that he's identified as gay, he's just flamboyant.
Sure, yes. I never
Steven Stucker was gay.
That's true.
The actor who played him. Yeah.
Yeah. I never assumed that that character, I never assumed his sexuality, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Just a charismatic, cartoony person.
Well, but that's the thing is he's cartoony, but his behaviors are stereotypical. They're what are the stereotypes. So I feel like it was kind of like it's enough. It's that's a portrayal that you wouldn't be able to repeat now.
No.
That you wouldn't want to repeat now. Whereas the Edward Herrmann, relationship
Edward Herrmann,
in this.
always good.
Edward Herrmann, always good. And just also you look at another like career contrast. Cause the last movie he was in before this, or at least like the last like big movie he was in before this was The Lost Boys.
I was just thinking that. Yeah. Very different character, very different kind of movie.
Yeah. But he's great. He's great. He's
versatile.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got, the guy who plays Fabio, Michel Placido.
He's good. Yeah.
Yep. He's great. You've got Michael Gross from Family Ties.
Right. Michael Gross and his sister, Mary Gross.
Right.
Mary Gross, who has come up on this podcast a few times already.
We've done Feds.
Yes. Who else can say that? Michael Gross is good. I feel like his character and the connection with Lily Tomlin's characters is a little strange, and that could have been developed a little bit better.
Well, a lot of some of those, although you know what, the one that I liked was the one with, it would be Bette Midler, City Bette Midler,
City Sadie,
City Sadie's husband or ex-husband.
Right.
Which, by the way, how many movies is she in where she has a son named Jason? At least this and The First Wives Club, but I swear,
that's true.
I swear it just feels so natural for her to have.
It totally tracks. I mean, also played by Seth Green.
Yeah.
A Rambo obsessed Seth Green.
Yeah, well, wow. I saw that was a blast from the past, seeing all those toys in there. And by the way, again, so not only is it another movie with the word big in the title that comes out a week later, it's got a friggin' FAO Schwartz scene.
That's true. Wow, I didn't even think about that. That's right.
Damn.
FAO Schwartz got a nice bump from the box office that month.
For real. Well, I mean, and that big bump lasted for as long as the store was there.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people go in being like, oh, no, I don't want to see the big piano. I want to see the Rambo section. Where's that?
I want all those Rambo toys back from the 80s when they turned Rambo into a cartoon series.
You know, Dan, and this is a conversation we can have off mic sometime, but I'd love to do a series that's all movies about Vietnam veterans not being able to adjust to life after the war. Because there are so many great ones, and Rambo, I mean, First Blood is an awesome one that is kind of, it's very different from a lot of the others.
Yeah, yes.
But there are so many amazing movies that cover that territory, and all in very different ways. So
I feel like that sounds like that. Well, I guess we'll still be doing this when Veterans Day rolls around.
Well, look, if we can come up with 52 of them, then we've got our next year series going.
I mean, not to be flip about it, but if we expand it beyond just one war,
sure. Right.
And we've got the best years of our lives, and there's other...
There's so many.
Well, I'm also in the process right now of, in my teaching life, preparing to teach The Great Gatsby, and we have the World War I, so you've got that, which is a set of the traumas from that war, which we touched upon that in Legends of the Fall, actually.
Sure,
so,
we sure did.
Yeah, Tristan saw the horrors of war firsthand.
What's the one with William Devane, the guy that's sitting over
Rolling
your shoulder?
Thunder.
Yeah, Rolling Thunder is so bananas.
With Devane and Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, there's The Deer Hunter, there's Coming Home, there's Heroes, there's so many.
The thing is, man, I don't think I can watch a lot of those.
It would not be a very fun series, but it would be a very serious tone. But yeah.
How do we get there from? Rambo. Okay,
So, we kind of breezed past this, and I want to say this before we get any further. So, Bette Midler plays two characters, both named Sadie. Lily Tomlin plays two characters named Rose. I kept on expecting Bette Midler's character to be named Rose because of the rose. And I associate that word with Bette Midler in a way. And so every time they say Rose and it's not her, it bumped me a little bit. And there's just something about her that's just like, no, her name should be Rose and Lily Tomlin should be Sadie. But whatever. Also,
yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the scene where there's the naming of the babies is great, especially the country ones, because it's just the dad overhearing the other two get named, and it was just like, hey, how about Rose and Sadie? That was kind of amazing. That whole beginning of the movie is fantastic. Well, we're still talking about the supporting actors, but I definitely want to come back to the whole opening sequence of this movie.
Yep. A wonderful opening sequence. Just, classic 80s comedy.
So who's the actor who plays Bette Midler, Sadie's ex-husband?
Oh yeah, that's right. What is his name?
Because I didn't recognize him, and I thought that he was very good, but I was also just like, I don't understand why somebody like that was with somebody like Sadie. That part didn't compute.
Right. I think, was that Barry Primus? I don't know,
but
I'm looking at IMDb, and I'm
if there's
like
a picture.
I'm looking at the pictures and I cannot tell. But he's the only one. Let me see who's Hunt Shelton and Binky Shelton.
Probably the babies. If they share a last name.
The parent or the parents. No. I'm looking at
the character names.
Yeah. I'm looking at the. I'm trying to remember
that's the city parents' names.
Right. I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah. Well, you know who else? While I'm still looking for that, we got to talk about Joe Grafasi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but who plays the desk clerk in this.
The desk clerk.
And other Zaz fans would recognize him as Pap Smear from The Naked Gun.
Yes. I recognized him immediately, and I thought that his character was really fun, who's in like this, masochistic situation with, I guess, City Sadie, if I'm remembering correct. Well,
he thinks it's City Sadie.
Yeah, so they're right, but he's getting his wires crossed a little bit about, the requests, because Country Sadie is just like, oh, you haven't seen the view from up on that floor? You need to see the view. You need to come up and see the view. And it's just like, huh. Okay, this lady's hitting on me, all right. And the way that escalates and then it culminates in a nice, punch to the face from City Sadie is chef's kiss. But
the innuendo, the unintentional innuendo in their dialogue is so funny.
Yeah, no, it's great. There's just countless instances of people misunderstanding and making little mistakes that have a big ripple. That
it's a comedy of errors.
It's a giant comedy of errors. It's very silly. But yeah, let's talk about that opening scene. So this is in the 40s, and this wealthy couple is driving through West Virginia, and the woman starts to go into labor. They pull over and find some house, and the guy says, like, oh, the nearest hospital is like all these miles away. There's this one just in town, but the deal with the one in town is that it is like operated specifically for the employees of this furniture company that is like core to this town. And so they bop over to the owner's house, buy the company so that they can give birth at this hospital. And lo and behold, the country couple who they get the directions from are also having babies, also twins. And and then of course there's an absent-minded I guess nurse who puts the wrong baby in the wrong bassinet, and hilarity ensues. But there's also this moment before all that happens where the doctor is drinking apple juice, and then somebody drops off a urine sample, and then the doctor is drinking apple juice, and they have more apple juice, and of course the glass with the urine goes on a tray. But that doesn't like pay off at all. It's just the payoff is that that went on the tray, which went into a room of people.
Right, yeah, and that she brings it into the room. Is it the same nurse who ends up?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
well, I guess it's setting up the fact that she's absent-minded.
Yeah.
But you don't, like, get a moment where there's, like, a sound effect of somebody, like, spitting out a beverage.
No, it's not even, like, 2 scenes later, like in a classic ZAZ movie, where you'd hear just, like, in a moment of silence, is that piss?
Yeah.
So with this opening and looking at this opening, especially looking at it now, looking at it through the 2024 lens, I'm seeing some interesting commentary that I don't know how intentional it all is, but just the idea. So first of all, the fact that the wealthy northern couple is older. Right. And having children for the first, and I mean, did they say anything about I feel like there's some implication that I don't know, like getting pregnant was not easy for them, but they're older and they're first time parents, and these are going to be their only kids. Whereas with I'm blanking on the last names, but the, country Sadie and Rose family, you see they've already got a bunch of kids, and there's all, jokes about when the mother's going into labor and she's in the room and she's like, oh, is that painting new since last time?
Yeah. And labor for her takes like 5 minutes, and she's just like, okay, now I have a baby. Right.
Yeah. 2. Who knew?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. It's really, it's common. It reminded me of the jokes in the opening of Idiocracy with the intellectual couple that's talking about like their long-term plan and having kids and all that. And then you have the, stereotypical, like, quote unquote, hillbilly family that's just kid after kid after kid. So it rung that bell for me.
It's a trope.
It's a trope. Yeah, it is. But the fact that these people can just kind of roll in and can buy the company.
Yeah.
So that they can use the hospital. So.
Well, and I actually thought that was really a fun way to explain why there was this thing that went on 40 years later. I thought that was very clever.
Yeah. No. Oh, yeah. No, I think it's great. I think it's, if you're watching it, if you're kind of doing like the woke watch of it, you're like, oh, there's that privilege, and it's that wealth gap, and it is a great, and it brings everything back together at the end.
Well, also, I mean, the movie's called Big Business, and the idea really is that, big business is corrupt, and it is ignorant of the people who make things work. Recently, and I just heard this today, but in one of Kamala Harris's rallies, she's talking about how, there are the people who, the certain there's certain plans that like Donald Trump has are all about the people who own the big buildings, but not the people who build it, wire it, and mop the floors. And it's one of those, things that, like, in a movie like Big Business, it's all about those people that are living in this town of, was it Jupiter Hollow?
Jupiter Hollow, yeah.
Jupiter Hollow. I'm thinking of Stars Hollow, but that's Edward Herrmann's other thing, and
right.
Yeah. Right. So all of the people who are like making this company work, and even though it's not as profitable for, Moramax, it doesn't, all that City Sadie sees are the, like, the dollar signs and what could happen by selling off the company and stripping the town for parts, where, the other 3 are really looking out for the good of that town. Even Country Sadie, that's her mission, is to support them, even though she is like-minded with, City Sadie, at least in just her love of the hustle and bustle, I guess. But it's this movie's also a really interesting study of like nature versus nurture, where it's just like there are those inherent things that like you can't scratch. They're just part of your DNA, and the nurture part of it all, which is just like, being in a position of power, from birth, essentially, puts, kind of just like rots your conscience. So anyway, it's an interesting study of nature versus nurture.
Also, Country Sadie can yodel.
Hell yeah, she can.
Like a champ. I love the scene when they're the buskers are playing the steel drums out by like Central Park, and she does the whole yodeling bit. That must have been fun to watch.
Oh my God. Absolutely. Yeah. Bette Midler's fantastic. Gotta love her.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, everything that Lily Tomlin does is fantastic. You know, Country Sadie, who's got a chip on her shoulder about going to New York, she is very
Country Rose?
paranoid.
Country Rose? Country Rose?
Sorry, Country Rose. You're right. Rose is very paranoid.
That you did that, so.
I set it up early on so that it made sense later. So yeah, Country Rose, she's very paranoid. She thinks that everything that everybody's doing is, you know, for a nefarious reason, that nobody has, you know, good intentions. She's also planting all of these like Stop Moramax propaganda all over the Plaza Hotel, which is pretty great. All of it is just really fun. And, you know, had this movie been maybe 5 or 10 minutes longer, I think that it could have been paced a little bit better. But ultimately it did what it came there to do. Yeah. And is a blast to watch. And especially at the end when everybody comes together. I mean, I feel like it'd be silly to give a spoiler alert because like, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the whole movie is like predicated on the idea that eventually all 4 of them are going to be together doing some wackiness.
And of course, they're all going to wind up with the right guy.
Yeah, that part felt weird.
Well, it's forced. It was one of those. It felt very forced, like that. I mean, and I mean, not that isn't part of the original Shakespeare. It definitely is, but in Big Business, it felt forced because, and maybe that's where that extra 10 minutes can go. And like you said before, with the Michael Gross character, we do get a good idea with City Sadie and her ex-husband of kind of like what the rift is, and then why Country Sadie makes such a strong impression on him by disciplining Jason.
Yeah.
So that, and like, I really liked that scene. I like it because he thinks that she's City Sadie and he's like, oh, wow, I don't, this is amazing and so different. And
yeah. But then for, Country Rose to end up with Michael Gross felt strange. I don't know. The fact that they're all just like sister swapping is just very bizarre.
It didn't necessarily make sense that like Rune wouldn't have like there wasn't enough for Rune to say like Ward. Right, like I'm cutting everything off with Country Rose and getting together with City Rose.
That made no sense, but because like he proposes to her thinking that it's Country Rose.
Yeah.
And she's, you know, taken aback, but I don't know. Yeah, that part I think could have used a little bit of love, but that aside, I don't know. I mean, the only thing is like, oh, this is essentially the same person, except for this one actually wants to be with me, and the other one kind of doesn't care at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, it's all, yeah, it's funny. And then, try imagine, like, I feel like the sequel is just, it's kind of a big therapy session with all of them and like Seth Green and.
Well, and that's a good way to ask the question, Dan, what would you do given the opportunity to revisit Big Business?
Oh boy. I would I think that the best way that this could be done is remaking it. And of course, like, yeah, of course you could readapt Comedy of Errors, but I would kind of be interested in seeing an updated remake of Big Business, and ideally it would be just like the Barb and Star team, so it would be like Kristen Wiig and Annie Mumolo, and
so good.
like who everyone on their team, like get Michael Hitchcock there in the Edward Herrmann role or whatever.
Oh,
like
he's played that role 100 times.
This very true. Yes. It to me, it just felt like if you were going to remake something like this, that really does rely on Bette Midler and Lily Tomlin's personalities, that they make this version work. You need to have a remake with a pairing that has that, can pull that off. And we've talked about Barb and Star on here before and how wonderful that movie is.
Oh my God. Love that
and to
movie.
see them take a stab at big business, I think it would be really funny. And I think, it's like, I also in my notes, I was like, oh yeah, Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, but this is the Kristen Wiig, Annie Momolo pairing is what I want for this. And I think it would work really well. And maybe there are other people, but I'm like, I also just want them to make another movie together.
Right. And, you can totally see like either Will Forte or Bill Hader as like the hotel clerk, like there are so many people that are in their sphere that would fit right into a movie like this. And that they would have so much fun doing it and it would feel appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would Tim Meadows be too old to be the concierge?
Maybe, but there's certainly a place for him.
Yeah. That feels like a very like a very Tim Meadows. I'm like, where else did you put Tim Meadows in this? But
yeah, I mean, I guess he could. Maybe it's him and Michael Hitchcock as that colleague / romantic partnership situation.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, there's definitely space for everybody else. So that's one idea. One idea is that, and then the other idea is that why not a musical?
Yeah.
I know it's like you don't have the camera tricks, but also on stage you can cheat that a bit more with your costuming and with your casting. I mean, the musical sideshow features conjoined twins,
right?
And they did not have the same. Totally different, non-conjoined actresses, not even related, playing those on Broadway. So you could do Big Business as a musical, and I think it would be a fun, old-fashioned musical. And as we've clearly established, it is based on theater.
Yeah.
And it's the type of, it could be a big, fun Broadway smash.
Yeah. And are there any, Broadway performing sets of identical twins that could do something like this?
Probably. There probably are. But even
probably give a chance to somebody who otherwise would be overlooked for other roles, but that kind of makes it work for their career.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe, but like I said, I don't think you need to rely on the availability of casting twins in these roles. You just get 4 incredibly talented actresses and make sure that you can make 2 of them look enough like each other.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, each, you know what I mean.
Do you try to make one of them look really like Bette Midler-y or kind of do their own thing?
Do their own thing. Do like whatever. It's kind of like whatever it is. Whenever you're casting, whatever vocal parts you're looking for, it's just kind of. It's basically like when you're casting and you get like certain types for certain roles. You don't have to choose just one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's almost like it would almost be like casting an actor and their understudy. Well, understudies are less obligated to look like the person they're understudying.
Sure, right. Yeah.
But yeah, no, casting the understudies, that would be, another trick. But come on, not impossible. You got a great cast of characters in this. You throw in some great songs. I mean, man, imagine some Rune musical numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rune
So being Fred Ward's character.
Yeah. Again. Yes. All
it's
right,
just such
John,
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway,
So that's my thing. Either it like that the remake as I described it, or full on Broadway musical.
I love it.
What do you think?
Well, I am thinking similarly to how you're going with it, with stage musical, which is not something that I typically think is appropriate, but in this case, a lot of it takes place in the same location, and like it could really work. It would make a lot of sense. However, Dan, I've got a twist for you, and mine is that it is an all drag cast.
Wonderful.
Maybe not all drag, because maybe somebody like Rune, or like Jason, maybe those aren't drag characters, but like
Maybe not Jason,
especially
but Rune.
our core four. A drag king for Rune would be really fun, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the core four, another benefit of doing it drag is that the performers themselves don't necessarily need to look identical to each other, because the makeup and the costumes and the wigs and everything get you there. Because if you're doing that with a traditionally cast, gender match and sex match, then, an over the top wig becomes more obvious. Whereas if it's drag, it's expected. And, especially for a character like Sadie, you're going to want that like real fun hair. And I'm sure that for Rose, you could find a really different type of interpretation for somebody that's a little bit more, backcountry, kind of hippy dippy in the case of City Rose.
No, I wonder if you're casting drag queens, is it more likely that you're going to go in the direction of having them look like Midler and Tomlin? Because
probably.
Yeah.
I think about a lot of these shows where it's like, the Golden Girls drag, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, the fun of it is that they look like the Golden Girls.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, if you were going to do the drag version, right. Like it probably would not be hard to find drag queens who are at least, willing to make themselves look like Bette Midler or Lily Tomlin.
Well, Bette Midler, who is kind of, she's iconic in the queer community for an older generation, and Lily Tomlin, a queer icon.
Yeah.
So what a great match. It makes perfect sense. And certainly there's a market for that kind of a thing. I don't think that it would necessarily be like a big mega smash hit, but it would be a very niche, fun thing that, people who get it would really enjoy it.
And well, it would actually be fun to do that as like a large scale production versus like one of those, off Broadway, like you said, the Golden Girls things, just because the big business is less known.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how popular it is among like the gay community.
No, I can't imagine that it's, topping the lists, but but I think it would be really fun to do that, just like on a really large scale. Yeah. Anyway,
I'd see it.
I'd see it too. That'd be a lot of fun. Well, Dan, before we move on and let our dear listeners know what we're going to be doing on our next episode, first I'm going to remind everybody, this is our second episode in a year-long series where we are going alphabetically, cinematically, yo-yoing A to Z and then Z to A. Last time we did Anaconda. This time we're doing Big Business. Our kind of goal is to have as much of that letter in the episode or the movie title as possible. And Dan will get to our C episode soon, but we'll, before we do that, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for listening, but email us, ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. If you have an idea for a movie that fits that criteria and you want to let us know, email us. We'd love to hear from you. We're also on Instagram @ruinedchildhoodspod and on TikTok @ruinedchildhoods. Also, ruinedchildhoodspod.com is a great way to keep track of everything that we've got going on. You can watch these also on YouTube and Spotify. Dan, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. Rate and review us on all the stuff. But Dan, what are we covering on our next episode, our first C episode?
Well, for our C movie, we're doing what really is maybe more of a B movie, but it gets an A+ from me. It's It is CC and Company from 1970, directed by Seymour Robbie, starring Joe Namath and Anne Margaret.
Dan, I know that you and I have both already watched this movie, and I know how excited we both are. I'm sure that we would love to just continue on and knock out that whole episode, but
I was going to say, if it wasn't 9:30 p.m. on a Sunday right now, I would be full steam ahead, but I really want to just I want to be so, I am so ready. I'm so excited to talk about this movie that I wasn't even aware of before this.
No, I mean, it was kind of presented to us in kind of a majestic way. So I'm totally psyched for that.
Fate brought it, much like the City Sadie and Country Sadie and City Rose and Country Rose. Fate brought us together, brought you and me to CC and Company.
Yeah. Well, everybody, watch Big Business. Subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And Dan, as you're headed from Jupiter Hollow to the big city, Big Apple, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.